everybody? Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review Series. We've got over 1,200 episodes here on Pro Wrestling Logic, from old school, new school. We've got Mid-South, we've got Smoky Mountain Wrestling, we've got World Class Championship Wrestling, we've got Raw, we've got AEW, all sorts of things. So, certainly something for you to like, at least I hope. And we are moving towards the benefit of the November 14th, 1992 edition of Saturday Night. This is reported to be I guess you'd call it an extended version of the show. They call it 2.5 hours. Lots of good stuff on the program here. Maybe not everything is good, but more good than not. And we will run about 125 of these in total, I think, maybe a little more than that. Would love to have the entire, 300 or 400 shows, but they're not all available. Anyway, the beginning of Larry Zbyszko as a commentator is a cool thing. We then see the Vegas Connection, Van Hammer. Vegas Connection is in the program, though. Van Hammer and Bobby Walker here. Obviously, Van Hammer's been pushed to the moon. Bobby Walker, relative newcomer, really awkward attempt at a sunset flip after some punches and kicks and basic stuff. Van Hammer's been overpushed to the moon. Obviously, Dusty Rhodes was a big fan of the guy. He hits a running knee lift and then eventually nails the slingshot suplex along the way there. Bill Watts in the back comes along and basically lets us know that, number one, Cactus Jack's guy, Jake Roberts, has been eliminated from the King of Cable tournament due to Roberts having personal problems. Personal problems, in this case, code for going to rehab, and is no longer with WCW. New member of Cactus Jack's squad will be in the King of Cable concept as we move forward here. Jack says he doesn't really care if it's Tony Atlas that wins, Butch Reed, or the Barbarian. He just cares that somebody wins here, the King of Cable tournament, as representation of himself and the things that are associated with him there. Ultimately, we kind of see this is the Vegas Connection, Vinny Vegas and Diamond Dallas Page. They're making their way to the ring, and they have been a team for a little while now. That team really doesn't get as over as it could. Vinny Vegas, of course, facing off against Bagwell a few weeks ago. Some enhancement talent stuff and basic stuff is a contributing factor to that. Steamboat and Douglas are the team that they are facing here this week, though. Douglas and Page are the early tandem. Of course, Steamboat and Douglas end up becoming tag team champions not too long from now, but they end up hitting Steamboat with a back thrust after Douglas manages to hit the crossbody from the top rope. Dallas Page and Ricky Steamboat is always kind of a thing that I would have loved to have seen a few years later when Page was at his prime, but that doesn't come together, obviously, because of Ricky Steamboat's injury. Nash, a.k.a. Vinny Vegas, comes in and bowls over Shane Douglas with a clothesline and a couple of, hard shots there. Dallas sends him back into the corner and gets him to the point of being choked out there. Hard shots by Shane Douglas. Douglas manages a drop kick under the chin of Page, and Page goes through the ropes to the outside and is not in a good space. Meanwhile, Vinny Vegas gets the body slam there, and it is eventually that the team of Steamboat and Douglas get a victory, as they would need to going into winning the championships. It is Nash that takes the fall, which is a little surprising. Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham still out there claiming they are ready to face whomever. Steamboat and Douglas are the upcoming challengers. Basically, Barry Windham doing more heel stick, basically saying that, in fact, when he was injured in 1991, Steamboat stood in as a stand-in. Steamboat references Dustin Rhodes as still his friend. Tries to be friendly to Barry Windham, but for obvious reasons, that doesn't pay off. The undefeated Eric Watts out next. Watts against Chris Sullivan, not your best match. Sullivan, a capable enhancement talent, but very few could do much with a guy like Watts at this particular juncture of his career. Watts does a bunch of takedowns and unfortunately tries to drop kick. I say unfortunately because he's not very good at it. Goes to work on the knee, tries some leg grapevine stuff and hard shots along the way. Watts eventually does get a victory, and they then plug the main event. Watts talks about having a bullet on his chest, so to speak, in terms of being his father's son. Of course, Bill Watts, his father and the head of WCW at the time, wanting competition but not knowing what he's ready for. Then an enhancement match for Tex Slazenger and Shanghai Pierce out next. They do the Texas Hillbilly / Texas Cowboy style gimmick. Lots of brawling. One of the Cole twins, I believe, is here. Looks like a Cole twin. Didn't catch the name of the enhancement talents here. Obviously, the idea is for the nature of this match to be a highlight for Pierce and Slazenger. Baby faces stay on the arm for a couple of minutes. Nothing major to write home about there. Back kicks on the leg. Really basic stuff. Heels manage to stay on the attack. Tex is in for more of the match. Shanghai Pierce does come up, but not as readily as his tag team partner. They actually give this more than was needed to be given. Drops the elbow, and then we see Bill Watts still talking a good bit about the nature of the King of Cable tournament and the challenges therein, giving a couple of suspensions out and doing all that he needs to do to keep things going. Dr. Death Steve Williams does a sit-down audio where he talks about being one of the toughest guys in the area, getting the Dr. Death name, being ready to fight any and all comers. Basically a very basic promo. Then we see kind of the drawing of some of the heads up between Rick Rude and Sting, some challenges there, going towards that, and of course Rude is still your WCW US champion. Sting is not the world champion any longer. Rick Rude being embarrassed certainly by Sting. Sting basically saying if he is a man or not is the inference. Steve Austin at ringside there during that whole contest. Then we kind of see Rude get embarrassed by being shown up by Sting and having the clothes torn off and all of that. Rude really gets frustrated. There is a underdog challenge match. Names of the individuals not important. I won't really go too far except to say they basically do the most basic wrestling school match as is possible. They basically have enhancement talents winning matches against each other to fill television time. Maybe they didn't need 2 to 2.5 hours on a Saturday night if that's the way they're going to use the television time. Speaking of good ways to use television time, though, Flying Brian Pillman out next. Pillman, I guess by the end of November, certainly in full heel mode, but he's here against the Freedom Fighter, masked superstar extraordinaire. Pillman, of course, having had issues with Brad Armstrong in the past few weeks, wanting to go at it where he can, not wanting to take a backward step unless absolutely necessary, and certainly for Pillman also that's kind of where it bails out. So I mean, Pillman takes over and does all that he can do. in a meaningful way, and he's bouncing around doing everything he can do, and stalling, doesn't, doing a bit of going out of the ring, back into the ring, rolls back in, does every heel tactic he can do, gets sent into the buckle by the masked freedom fighter a few times. Pillman does not take backward steps, though. He is willing to cheat, poke in the eye, and all of that, do everything he can possibly do to get advantages where he can. Pillman talks about wanting to be one of the best in the world post the process. Ron Simmons is up next with a promo where he's promoting working with Rick Rude eventually. Being tired of hearing about Rude, being tired of dealing with Rude, wants to be a fighting champion and the like. Basic Simmons promo. I think the one area in 1992 where Simmons needed the most work was in promos because it never really clicked. Scotty Flamingo out next. I did not know that he lasted all the way up until the end of this era here. Bagwell and Flamingo is up next. And, basic stuff. Bagwell still being treated like the Rookie of the Year, still being treated like a darling. Basic things as Flamingo pushes Bagwell back to the corner. Body scissors by Flamingo all the way around. Some cinch-ups by Bagwell, and again, manages to hit a few body scissors along the way. Bagwell with some drop kicks too. Does everything he possibly can. Runs him over with a lariat, among other things. And hard shots. And again, there you go. Irish whips and back drops and all of that. Drop kicks under the chin. Ultimately, clotheslines by Bagwell. And again, hard shots along the way. Needless to say, Johnny Polo, or Scotty Flamingo as it were, does everything he can, does get a victory. Johnny B. Bad says he's frustrated at being put in a position where he could get knocked out by none other than Scotty Flamingo. They're going to have a boxing match at the next Clash of the Champions. Speaking of matches at the next Clash of the Champions, Paulie Dangerously is here. He is having some sort of fighters exhibition. He has the remaining members of the Dangerous Alliance around him for the most part. He is punch kick against an enhancement talent. He goes and challenges Medusa, yells at her for several minutes. His entire team leaves him, insults her. She's just a woman, that sort of thing. Vader says he's going to be the king of cable. He's not willing to take any backward steps towards that end. And then we move on to Kensuke Sasaki in a match here. Of course, he's big in Japan. There actually is a beautiful Bobby Eaton and I believe something like the Red Terror Eagle and or Sasaki, though, you've seen as a major deal in Japan at the time. Not exactly a guy that you are writing home about if you're an American fan, but even to the Japanese, him getting more experience in America was what they wanted. Bobby Eaton, a good guy to put him in the ring with. Eaton hits a few back elbows, but it's clear that Sasuke has several, technical abilities that I wouldn't say Bobby doesn't, but he's certainly not as focused on them. High cross body by Sasuke, and away we go. And ultimately, hard shots roll up into for Eaton. Eaton nearly gets pinned. Short need to mention that in fact Michael P.S. Hayes is seen at ringside as he is still a manager for Bobby. Arn Anderson runs in, attacks Sasuke. Then there's a 3-on-1 there against the Japanese star, who comes out with a disqualification win. Not a huge surprise. Tony Atlas up next. with about, I don't know, less than 20 minutes anyway, about 18 minutes left in the program. Atlas in the King of Cable tournament match here. Vader is his opponent, and yes, this match is, in fact, as ugly as one would expect. There's no real babyface to both guys. Heel, I guess you'd say Atlas a little less of a heel. Atlas tries to take Vader off his feet with a clothesline, does not get the job done. Vader takes him out with a series of shots and eventually gets a victory in relatively short order. Tony Atlas in 1992, not in the best shape. I remember working with Tony in the early 2000s. Much different experience. Double Thunderhook splash by Vader, and again, he gets the victory there. Barry Windham basically says that he's tired of Dustin Rhodes not being dependable and everything that way. Cactus Jack is upset that Vader is in the winner's position in the King of Cable matches. With about, I don't know, something like a 6 or 8 minutes left in the program, we see Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson out there. Rhodes and Anderson continue to be one of the better match series at the time. All these years later, both in AEW. Think about that. Or Rhodes and the Barbarian. I'm sorry, Anderson was on my mind because of the Anderson jumping Sasuke earlier in the match. Rhodes and the Barbarian are here. Basic stuff. Punches by Rhodes. Rhodes manages the Irish Whip, and Barbarian ducks under. The bloom is off the rose, really, I think, on the Barbarian at this point. He's done the honors of the pay-per-view match he was going to do. That's about as far as he's going to go. I think he's gone in another few months here. They go to the outside after crossbody by Rhodes. Rhodes doesn't want to take any backward steps or motion, but anyhow, brawl to the outside, and ultimately an attempted power bomb lifts him up over the shoulder is where we go. And again, kicks off and tries to do everything he can, rolls him over and clotheslines by Rhodes. Rhodes manages to do everything he can do to get things done here. Rhodes gets caught with a short clothesline and obviously hard shots there. Rhodes manages to get chopped to smithereens with about a minute left in the program for a 2.5-hour program, not other than the Heyman stuff, which is worth going out of your way to see just because what you can get away with in 1992 is so much different than what you can get away with now. That angle he did with Medusa, you could never get away with now in a million years, but here you can in 1992. With about a minute left in the program, nothing too terribly wonderful. Barbarian ducks out of the way, hits a shoulder, Rhodes rolls him up, 1, 2, 3, and Dustin Rhodes gets a victory to close the program. We will be back with more right after this, and more of the WCW Saturday Night Series.